Marcus wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished loading the last box into his delivery truck. The summer heat was unbearable, and his uniform stuck to his back like a second skin. He had been working as a delivery driver for 3 years now, ever since he lost his job at the factory. The pay wasn't great, but it helped him take care of his sick mother and pay for her medical bills. As he walked back toward his truck, something caught his eye. An elderly woman sat in a wheelchair near the bus stop, looking distressed. Her white hair was neatly arranged, and she wore a simple blue dress with a small pearl necklace. What worried Marcus was the way she kept trying to move her wheelchair, but it wouldn't budge. The front wheel seemed to be stuck at an odd angle. Marcus had always been taught by his parents to help others when they were in trouble. His father, who passed away 5 years ago, used to say that kindness was the only currency that never lost its value. Without thinking twice, Marcus walked over to the woman. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said gently, not wanting to startle her. "I noticed you're having trouble with your wheelchair. Would you like me to take a look at it?" The woman looked up at him with tired but kind eyes. She seemed hesitant at first, probably wondering if she could trust this stranger. Marcus understood her concern. In today's world, it was hard to know who to trust. "Oh, that's very kind of you, young man," she said in a soft voice. "I'm afraid it stopped working properly about 10 minutes ago. I was trying to get to the medical center for my appointment, but now I'm stuck here." Marcus knelt down beside the wheelchair and examined the problem. The front wheel had somehow gotten jammed with a piece of metal debris, probably from construction work nearby. It looked like it would be easy enough to fix with the right tools. "I think I can help you," Marcus said with a smile. "I have some tools in my truck. This shouldn't take too long." He jogged back to his delivery truck and grabbed his toolbox from the back. Marcus had always been good with his hands, a skill he learned from his father, who was a mechanic. He returned to the woman and got to work on the wheelchair. "What's your name, dear?" the woman asked as Marcus worked on removing the debris. "I'm Marcus, ma'am. Marcus Johnson," he replied while carefully using his pliers to extract the metal piece. "And you are?" "You can call me Mrs. Williams," she said. "I really appreciate this. Most people these days just walk by when they see someone in need." Marcus thought about her words. It was true that many people seemed too busy or too worried about their own problems to help others. He had seen it many times during his delivery routes. People rushing past homeless individuals, ignoring elderly, folks who dropped their groceries, or pretending not to see when someone clearly needed assistance. "My parents raised me to always lend a hand when I can," Marcus said as he continued working. "Besides, we're all in this together, right?" Mrs. Williams smiled at his response. "You sound like a wise young man. Tell me, what do you do for work?" "I'm a delivery driver," Marcus explained, finally managing to remove the stuck piece of metal. "It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills and helps me take care of my mom. She's been sick for a while now." "I'm sorry to hear about your mother," Mrs. Williams said with genuine concern. "What kind of illness does she have?" Marcus paused for a moment. He didn't usually share personal information with strangers, but something about Mrs. Williams made him feel comfortable opening up. "She has diabetes and some heart problems," he said. "The medical bills are pretty expensive, but we manage. I just wish I could do more for her." "Taking care of family is one of the most noble things a person can do," Mrs. Williams said. "Your parents did a wonderful job raising you." Marcus felt warmth in his chest at her words. It had been a long time since someone had complimented his character. Most days he felt like he was barely keeping his head above water, working long hours just to make ends meet. After a few more minutes of work, Marcus had successfully freed the wheel and checked all the other parts of the wheelchair. He tested the movement to make sure everything was working properly. "There you go, Mrs. Williams," he said, standing up and brushing the dirt off his hands. "Your wheelchair should work perfectly now." Mrs. Williams tested the movement and smiled with relief. "Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Marcus. You're truly an angel." "It was no trouble at all," Marcus said. "Are you sure you can make it to your appointment okay? I could give you a ride if you need one." "That's very thoughtful, but I'll be fine now," Mrs. Williams said. "The medical center is just a few blocks away, and my wheelchair works perfectly thanks to you." Marcus gathered his tools and prepared to leave. He had already spent more time than he should have, and his supervisor wouldn't be happy if he fell behind on his deliveries. "Wait," Mrs. Williams called out as he started walking away. I don't have any money with me right now, but I'd like to repay your kindness somehow. Please don't worry about it, Marcus said with a genuine smile. Helping you is payment enough. I hope your appointment goes well. As Marcus drove away in his delivery truck, he felt good about what he had done. He didn't know that Mrs. Williams sat there for several more minutes watching his truck disappear down the street. She had a thoughtful expression on her face as if she was making some kind of mental note about the young man who had helped her. Mrs. Williams finally made her way to the medical center, but her mind kept returning to Marcus Johnson. There was something special about him, something that reminded her of the values she had always tried to promote in her own life. She made a mental decision to remember his name and his act of kindness. Marcus, meanwhile, continued with his delivery route, unaware that this simple act of helping a stranger would soon change his life in ways he could never imagine. 2 weeks had passed since Marcus helped the elderly woman with her wheelchair. Life had returned to its usual routine of early morning starts, long delivery routes, and late evenings spent caring for his mother. His mom, Dorothy, had been having more difficult days lately. Her diabetes was becoming harder to manage, and the medications were getting more expensive each month. Marcus sat at their small kitchen table, surrounded by medical bills and past-due notices. The numbers seemed to mock him as he tried to figure out how to pay for everything with his modest salary. His mother's insulin alone cost more than what he made in a week, and that didn't include her other medications or the regular doctor visits. Marcus, honey, you don't need to worry so much about me, his mother said as she shuffled into the kitchen using her walker. She had lost a lot of weight over the past few months, and it broke Marcus's heart to see her looking so frail. Mom, I'm not worried, Marcus lied, quickly gathering up the bills so she wouldn't see them. Everything is going to be fine. Dorothy Johnson had worked as a school teacher for 30 years before retiring. She had always been the strong one in the family, especially after Marcus's father died. Now their roles had reversed, and Marcus felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. I know you're lying to me, his mother said with a weak smile. I raised you, remember? I can tell when something is bothering you. Marcus sighed and looked at his mother. She had sacrificed so much for him growing up, working extra hours to make sure he had everything he needed. She had always put his needs before her own, and now it was his turn to take care of her. The medical bills are just getting a bit overwhelming, Marcus admitted, but I'll figure something out. I always do. His mother reached across the table and took his hand in her thin fingers. You're such a good son, Marcus. Your father would be so proud of the man you've become. Before Marcus could respond, his phone rang. The caller ID showed a number he didn't recognize. He almost didn't answer, thinking it might be another bill collector, but something made him pick up. Hello, is this Marcus Johnson? A professional-sounding woman's voice asked. Yes, this is Marcus, he replied cautiously. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and I'm calling from the Williams Foundation. We received a recommendation about you from someone who said you helped them recently. Marcus was confused. He had never heard of the Williams Foundation, and he couldn't think of anyone he had helped who would have his phone number. Then he remembered Mrs. Williams from 2 weeks ago. I'm sorry, but I think there might be some mistake, Marcus said. I did help an elderly lady with her wheelchair a couple of weeks ago, but I don't understand what this is about. There's no mistake, Mr. Johnson, Sarah said warmly. Mrs. Williams was very impressed by your kindness, and she wanted to do something to show her appreciation. Would you be available to meet with someone from our foundation tomorrow afternoon? Marcus looked at his mother, who was listening with curiosity. He didn't want to get his hopes up, but he was intrigued by the phone call. What kind of foundation is this? Marcus asked. The Williams Foundation provides assistance to individuals and families who are facing financial hardships due to medical expenses, Sarah explained. We've been helping people in situations like yours for over 20 years. Marcus felt his heart skip a beat. Could this really be happening? He had prayed for some kind of help, but he never expected anything like this. Yes, I think I could meet tomorrow afternoon, Marcus said, trying to keep his voice steady. Where would you like to meet? Sarah gave him the address of an office building downtown and asked him to come at 2 o'clock. After hanging up, Marcus stared at his phone in disbelief. What was that about? His mother asked. Marcus explained the phone call to his mother, but even as he said the words, it felt too good to be true. He had learned not to get his hopes up too high, especially when it came to financial matters. The next day, Marcus took time off from work and drove to the address Sarah had given him. The building was impressive with marble floors and elegant decorations. He felt underdressed in his delivery uniform, but it was the only decent clothes he had. Sarah Mitchell turned out to be a kind woman in her 40s who welcomed Marcus warmly. She led him to a comfortable office with large windows overlooking the city. "Thank you for coming, Marcus," Sarah said as they sat down. "Let me explain why you're here. 2 weeks ago, you helped an elderly woman named Mrs. Williams when her wheelchair broke down. Do you remember that?" "Yes, I remember," Marcus said. "It was no big deal. Anyone would have done the same thing," Sarah smiled. "That's where you're wrong, Marcus. Mrs. Williams sits in that same spot every few weeks, and she's been helped by very few people over the years. Most people walk right past her." Marcus was surprised to hear this. "She goes there regularly?" "Mrs. Williams has been testing the kindness of strangers for many years," Sarah explained. "It's something she started doing after her husband passed away. She wants to find people who are genuinely good-hearted, people who help others without expecting anything in return." The pieces were starting to come together in Marcus's mind, but he still didn't understand the full picture. "Mrs. Williams was so impressed by your kindness that she asked us to investigate your background," Sarah continued. "We learned about your situation with your mother's medical expenses, and we'd like to help." Marcus felt tears forming in his eyes. "I don't understand. Who is Mrs. Williams? Why would she want to help us?" Sarah reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a folder. "Mrs. Williams is the founder and primary benefactor of this foundation. She's been helping families like yours for decades, but she's very selective about who receives assistance. She only helps people who have proven their character through acts of genuine kindness." Marcus was speechless. The elderly woman he had helped was wealthy enough to run her own foundation? It seemed impossible. "We'd like to cover all of your mother's medical expenses for the next year," Sarah said. "Additionally, we have a scholarship program that could help you pursue additional education or training if you're interested." Marcus couldn't hold back his tears anymore. He thought about his mother at home, worried about the bills they couldn't pay. He thought about all the sleepless nights he had spent trying to figure out how to make ends meet. "I don't know what to say," Marcus whispered. "This is more than I ever dreamed possible." Marcus drove home in a daze, his mind struggling to process what had just happened. The folder Sarah had given him sat on the passenger seat, containing documents that would change his family's life forever. Medical coverage for his mother, educational opportunities for himself, and most importantly, the removal of the crushing financial burden that had been weighing on his shoulders for years. When he walked through the front door of their small apartment, his mother was waiting in her favorite chair, the one his father had bought her 20 years ago. She looked up expectantly, her eyes showing both hope and concern. "How did it go, honey?" Dorothy asked, setting down the magazine she had been pretending to read. Marcus sat down on the couch across from her and took a deep breath. "Mom, you're not going to believe what just happened." He told her everything about the meeting with Sarah Mitchell, about Mrs. Williams and her foundation, and about the incredible offer they had made. As he spoke, he watched his mother's expression change from confusion to disbelief, to overwhelming joy. "Are you telling me that the lady whose wheelchair you fixed is going to pay for all my medical expenses?" Dorothy asked, tears streaming down her face. "That's exactly what I'm telling you," Marcus said, his own voice breaking with emotion. "We don't have to worry about the bills anymore, Mom. We can focus on getting you healthy." Dorothy covered her face with her hands and wept. Marcus had seen his mother cry many times over the years, but these were different tears. These were tears of relief, of gratitude, of hope for the future. "I can't believe this is real," she whispered. "After all these years of struggling, help came from someone you helped for just a few minutes." "I keep thinking the same thing," Marcus said. "It's like something out of a movie." Over the next few days, representatives from the Williams Foundation handled all the paperwork. They paid off the outstanding medical bills, set up accounts for future expenses, and even arranged for Dorothy to see a specialist who might be able to help manage her condition better. Marcus continued working his delivery route, but everything felt different now. The stress that had been his constant companion for years was gone, replaced by a sense of peace he hadn't felt since before his father died. He found himself whistling while he worked, something he hadn't done in a very long time. A week after his meeting with Sarah, Marcus received another phone call from the foundation. This time, They wanted to arrange a meeting between him and Mrs. Williams herself. She wanted to personally thank him and discuss the educational opportunities they had mentioned. Marcus agreed to meet her at a small cafe downtown. When he arrived, he immediately recognized the elderly woman sitting by the window, but she looked different somehow. She was well dressed in an elegant suit, and there was an air of authority about her that he hadn't noticed before. "Marcus," she said with a warm smile as he approached her table. "Thank you for coming." "Mrs. Williams," Marcus said, still feeling a bit overwhelmed by everything. "I still can't believe all of this is real." "Please call me Eleanor," she said, gesturing for him to sit down. "I want you to understand something, Marcus. What you did that day was nothing special to you, but it was everything to me." Marcus listened as Eleanor explained her story. Her late husband had been a successful businessman who had built his fortune from nothing, always believing that success should come with responsibility to help others. When he died 10 years ago, he left Eleanor with more money than she could ever spend, but also with a mission to find people who truly deserved help. For the past 10 years, I've been going to different locations around the city, pretending to need help, Eleanor explained. I want to see who stops, who cares enough to interrupt their own day to help a stranger. "You've been doing this for 10 years? Marcus asked, amazed. "Yes, and you'd be surprised how few people actually stop to help. Most people are so focused on their own problems that they don't see the needs of others around them. But you're different, Marcus. You saw someone in trouble and immediately wanted to help." Eleanor told him about some of the other people she had encountered over the years. Some had ignored her completely. Others had offered minimal help but seemed impatient or annoyed. A few had been genuinely kind, and those people had also received assistance from her foundation. "The thing that impressed me most about you," Eleanor continued, "was that you didn't just fix my wheelchair and leave. You offered to drive me to my appointment. You were concerned about my well-being, not just solving the immediate problem." Marcus thought back to that day. He remembered feeling worried about leaving her alone, wondering if she would be safe getting to where she needed to go. "I was raised to look out for others," Marcus said simply. "My parents taught me that we're all connected, that helping each other is just part of being human." "Your parents raised you well," Eleanor said. "And from what I've learned about how you care for your mother, they're probably very proud of the man you've become." She reached into her purse and pulled out another folder. "This contains information about educational programs we can sponsor for you. I know you're working as a delivery driver now, but I suspect you have bigger dreams." Marcus opened the folder and saw information about various technical schools and community college programs. There were courses in mechanics, business management, computer technology, and many other fields. "I've always been interested in mechanics," Marcus said. "My father was a mechanic and I learned a lot from him before he died. But I never had the money to pursue formal training." "Well, now you do," Eleanor said with a smile. "The foundation will cover all your educational expenses and we can arrange flexible scheduling, so you can continue working while you study." Marcus felt overwhelmed by her generosity. "Why are you doing all of this for us? We're complete strangers." Eleanor was quiet for a moment, looking out the window of the cafe. When she turned back to Marcus, her eyes were serious but kind. "Because kindness is rare, Marcus. Real selfless kindness is becoming harder and harder to find. When I meet someone like you, someone who helps others without thinking about what they might get in return, I want to make sure that person is rewarded for their goodness." "But I didn't help you expecting any reward," Marcus said. "I know," Eleanor replied. "That's exactly why you deserve one." 3 months later, Marcus's life had transformed in ways he never could have imagined. His mother was healthier than she had been in years, thanks to the excellent medical care provided through Eleanor's foundation. The new specialist had adjusted her medications and created a treatment plan that actually seemed to be working. Marcus had enrolled in a mechanical engineering program at the local community college. He studied in the evenings and on weekends, while continuing his delivery job during the day. The workload was challenging, but for the first time in years, he felt like he was building towards something better. The most surprising change, however, was his growing friendship with Eleanor Williams. What had started as a grateful beneficiary relationship had evolved into something much deeper. Eleanor invited him and his mother to have dinner with her once a month, and these visits had become the highlight of their lives. During one of these dinners at Eleanor's beautiful home, Marcus learned more about her past. She had grown up poor, much like he had, but her husband's business success had lifted them into a world of wealth and privilege. Despite having access to luxury beyond most people's dreams, Eleanor had never forgotten what it felt like to struggle. "Robert, my husband, used to say that money was like a tool," Eleanor explained as they sat in her elegant dining room. "It could be used to build something beautiful or to tear something down. He believed our responsibility was to use it to build up others." Dorothy, who had become quite fond of Eleanor, nodded in agreement. Marcus's father used to say something similar about kindness. He said it was the one thing that became more valuable when you gave it away. "Wise men, both of them," Eleanor said with a smile. As the evening progressed, Eleanor shared more details about her foundation's work. They had helped hundreds of families over the years, but she was becoming concerned about the future of the organization. "I'm 78 years old," Eleanor said. "I won't be able to do this work forever, and I've been thinking about what will happen to the foundation when I'm gone." Marcus and his mother exchanged glances. They had both grown to love Eleanor, and the thought of anything happening to her was difficult to consider. "Have you thought about training someone to take over?" Marcus asked. "I have," Eleanor said, giving him a meaningful look. "But it's not easy to find someone with the right heart for this work. It takes a special kind of person to understand what we're trying to accomplish." After dinner, Eleanor asked Marcus to stay behind while his mother went home. She wanted to discuss something important with him privately. "Marcus, I have a proposition for you," Eleanor said as they sat in her study, surrounded by books and photographs of all the people her foundation had helped over the years. "What kind of proposition?" Marcus asked. "I want you to consider joining the foundation as my assistant and eventual successor," Eleanor said. "You would complete your education first, of course, but then you could work with me to learn how the organization operates." Marcus was stunned. "You want me to run your foundation someday?" "I want you to continue the work that Robert and I started," Eleanor said. "You have the heart for it, Marcus. You understand what it means to struggle, and you know how to recognize genuine need versus manipulation." Marcus thought about the offer. It was an incredible opportunity, but it also felt like an enormous responsibility. How could he possibly fill the shoes of someone like Eleanor Williams? "I don't know if I'm qualified for something like that," Marcus said honestly. "Qualification isn't about degrees or experience," Eleanor replied. "It's about character. The day you helped me with my wheelchair, you proved you have the character this job requires." Over the following weeks, Marcus discussed the opportunity with his mother and thought carefully about what it would mean. The idea of dedicating his life to helping others appealed to him, but he also worried about whether he could live up to Eleanor's expectations. One day, while making his delivery route, Marcus encountered a situation that helped clarify his feelings about Eleanor's offer. He saw a young mother struggling to carry groceries while pushing a baby stroller with a flat tire. Without thinking, Marcus pulled over and offered to help. As he fixed the stroller tire and helped the woman load her groceries, he realized something important. Helping others wasn't something he had to think about or force himself to do. It was simply part of who he was, just as it had been when he helped Eleanor. The young mother was incredibly grateful, and as Marcus drove away, he thought about Eleanor's words regarding character and qualification. Maybe she was right. Maybe the most important qualification for running a foundation dedicated to helping others was simply caring enough to stop and help when help was needed. That evening, Marcus called Eleanor and told her he would accept her offer. He would finish his education and then join the foundation as her assistant, learning everything he could about the organization's work. "I'm so pleased, Marcus," Eleanor said, and he could hear the emotion in her voice. "I know this is the right decision." Over the next few months, Marcus began spending more time at the foundation offices, learning about grant applications, financial management, and the process of identifying worthy recipients. Eleanor taught him about the importance of discretion and dignity in helping others, and how to ensure that assistance actually helped rather than created dependency. "The goal is never to solve all of someone's problems," Eleanor explained during one of their training sessions. "The goal is to give them the tools and opportunity to solve their own problems." Marcus also learned about the Foundation's other programs. In addition to helping individuals and families, they funded scholarships for students from low-income backgrounds, supported medical research, and contributed to various charitable organizations. "Your father would be so proud," his mother told him one evening as they discussed his new career path. "He always said you had a good heart, but I don't think even he could have imagined something like this." Marcus felt the weight of the responsibility, but also the excitement of knowing he would be able to help people the way Eleanor had helped his family. It was a chance to turn his own experience of struggle into something positive for others. As he prepared for this new chapter of his life, Marcus often thought back to that day when he saw Eleanor struggling with her wheelchair. Such a simple act of kindness had changed everything, not just for him but for his mother as well. It made him wonder how many other small acts of kindness happened every day that could potentially change someone's entire life story. 1 year had passed since Marcus first met Eleanor Williams, and his life continued to evolve in remarkable ways. He had successfully completed his first year of mechanical engineering studies, while working part-time at the Williams Foundation. His mother's health had stabilized significantly, and she was now volunteering at a local community center, finding joy in helping others just as her son had always done. Marcus had thrown himself into learning everything he could about running a charitable foundation. Eleanor was an excellent teacher, patient and thorough in explaining the complexities of the organization. He learned about investment strategies that allowed the foundation to generate income while preserving capital for future generations. He studied tax laws and regulations that governed charitable organizations. Most importantly, he learned how to evaluate requests for assistance with both compassion and wisdom. The hardest part of this job, Eleanor told him during one of their weekly meetings, is learning to say no to people who genuinely need help, but whom we simply cannot assist due to limited resources. Marcus had already experienced this difficulty firsthand. The foundation received hundreds of requests for assistance every month, but they could only help a fraction of those who applied. The process of choosing who to help and who to turn away was emotionally draining, but Eleanor taught him that it was better to help a few people significantly than to spread resources so thin that no one received meaningful assistance. During this time, Marcus also began to understand the full scope of Eleanor's wealth and influence. The Williams Foundation was just one of several charitable organizations she supported. She had endowed scholarships at 3 universities, funded a children's hospital wing, and quietly supported dozens of smaller community organizations. Money is a tool, Eleanor reminded him regularly, echoing her late husband's philosophy. It's not the destination, it's the vehicle that can take you and others to better places. As Marcus became more involved in the foundation's operations, Eleanor gradually began transferring more responsibilities to him. She had him review applications, conduct interviews with potential recipients, and even make some of the final decisions about who would receive assistance. One particular case touched Marcus deeply. A single father named David Rodriguez had applied for help with his daughter's medical expenses. 8-year-old Sophia had been born with a heart condition that required ongoing treatment and would eventually need surgery. David worked 2 jobs but still couldn't afford the specialized care his daughter needed. Marcus spent hours reviewing David's application and supporting documents. He interviewed the family and spoke with Sophia's doctors to understand the full scope of her needs. The case reminded him of his own situation with his mother's medical bills, and he felt a strong connection to David's struggle. When Marcus presented the case to Eleanor, she could see how much it meant to him. "What's your recommendation?" she asked, though they both knew the answer. "I think we should help them," Marcus said. "The father is working as hard as he can, but the medical costs are simply beyond his reach. And the daughter? She's just a little girl who deserves a chance at a healthy life." Eleanor smiled and nodded. "I agree. Prepare the paperwork for full medical coverage." Cases like Sophia's reinforced Marcus's commitment to the foundation's mission. He began to understand that his role wasn't just about giving away money, but about giving people hope and opportunity. Every family they helped represented dreams preserved, potential realized, and dignity maintained. As his confidence grew, Eleanor began including him in more strategic decisions about the foundation's future. They discussed expanding certain programs, creating new initiatives, and establishing partnerships with other organizations. "I've been thinking about something," Marcus said during one of their planning sessions. "What if we created a program specifically for people who help others? Like scholarship opportunities for volunteers or grants for people who start their own community service projects?" Eleanor's eyes lit up. "That's a brilliant idea, Marcus. Rewarding kindness with opportunity could inspire even more people to help their communities." They spent several months developing what they called the Good Samaritan Initiative. The program would identify individuals who had demonstrated exceptional kindness or community service and provide them with educational opportunities, small business loans, or grants to expand their charitable work. The first recipient of the Good Samaritan Initiative was a woman named Maria Santos, who had been running a free food pantry out of her garage for 3 years. The foundation provided her with funding to rent a proper location and expand her services to help more families in her neighborhood. As Marcus watched Maria's reaction to receiving the grant, he was reminded of his own feelings when he first learned about Eleanor's foundation. The cycle of kindness was continuing, reaching new people and creating new opportunities for positive change. During this period, Marcus also began developing his own personal relationships outside of his work with the foundation. He had been so focused on caring for his mother and managing their financial struggles that he had never really dated or developed close friendships. Now, with his life more stable, he began to open himself up to new experiences. He met Sarah, a nurse who worked at the children's hospital that the foundation supported. She was intelligent, compassionate, and shared his passion for helping others. Their relationship developed slowly but steadily, built on shared values and mutual respect. "I've never met anyone quite like you," Sarah told him one evening as they walked through the park near the hospital. "Most people talk about wanting to make a difference, but you're actually doing it." Marcus felt grateful for Sarah's understanding and support. She had been raised in a loving family and had always been encouraged to pursue her dreams. But she understood that not everyone had been so fortunate. She admired his journey from struggling delivery driver to foundation executive and the way he had maintained his humility and kindness throughout his transformation. Eleanor was delighted to see Marcus building a personal life beyond his work with the foundation. She invited Sarah to their monthly dinners and quickly embraced her as part of their extended family. "Robert and I were married for 45 years, Eleanor told Marcus one day. "Having someone who shares your values and supports your mission makes every challenge easier and every success more meaningful." As Marcus reflected on the past year, he was amazed by how much his life had changed. He had gone from worrying about how to pay his mother's medical bills to managing millions of dollars in charitable funds. He had found love, purpose, and a sense of belonging that he had never experienced before. But perhaps most importantly, he had learned that the simple act of helping a stranger could create ripples that extended far beyond anything he could have imagined. His decision to stop and help Eleanor with her wheelchair had not only changed his own life, but it also enabled him to change the lives of countless others through the foundation's work. 5 years had passed since that life-changing encounter at the bus stop, and Marcus Johnson stood in his office at the Williams Foundation, looking out at the city where his transformation had begun. At 32, he had officially taken over as executive director of the foundation, though Eleanor remained as chairman emeritus and his most trusted advisor. The foundation had grown significantly under their joint leadership. The Good Samaritan Initiative had become their flagship program, inspiring other charitable organizations to adopt similar models. They had helped over 1,000 families with medical expenses, funded education for hundreds of students, and supported community projects in dozens of neighborhoods. Marcus had completed his mechanical engineering degree, but he had discovered that his true calling lay in the humanitarian work of the foundation. He had also married Sarah 2 years earlier in a beautiful ceremony that Eleanor had insisted on hosting in her garden. The 3 most important women in his life, his mother Dorothy, his wife Sarah, and his mentor Eleanor, had formed an unlikely but wonderful friendship. Dorothy's health had remained stable, and at 68 she had become one of the foundation's most enthusiastic volunteers. She often joked that her diabetes had been the best thing that ever happened to their family because it had led to Marcus meeting Eleanor. "I never thought I'd be grateful for being sick," she told visitors who came to learn about the foundation's work. "But if I hadn't needed those expensive medications, Marcus might never have been in the position to help Mrs. Williams, and none of this would have happened. On this particular morning, Marcus was preparing for a special board meeting. Eleanor, now 83 and moving more slowly but still sharp as ever, had called the meeting to make an important announcement about the future of the foundation. As board members gathered in the conference room, Marcus noticed that Eleanor seemed more emotional than usual. She had asked him not to review the agenda beforehand, saying only that she had something important to share with everyone. "Ladies and gentlemen," Eleanor began as the meeting came to order, "I've asked you here today to announce a significant change to the foundation's structure and leadership." She paused and looked around the room, making eye contact with each of the 12 board members who had gathered for this meeting. 5 years ago, I met a young man who changed my perspective on everything we do here. Marcus Johnson showed me that genuine kindness still exists in this world, and over the past few years, he has proven himself to be everything I hoped he would become as a leader and as a human being. Marcus felt his cheeks warm as Eleanor's attention turned to him. "Today, I am officially stepping down from active involvement in the Foundation's day-to-day operations. Marcus will assume full executive authority, and I will transition to an advisory role only." The room erupted in applause, but Eleanor held up her hand to continue. "Additionally, I am announcing the creation of the Marcus Johnson Endowment for Community Kindness. This fund will be dedicated specifically to identifying and rewarding individuals who demonstrate exceptional kindness to strangers, just as Marcus did for me 5 years ago." Marcus was speechless. An endowment in his name felt surreal, especially considering how his involvement with the foundation had begun. "Mrs. Williams," Marcus began, but Eleanor interrupted him. "Eleanor," she corrected with a smile, "after 5 years I think we can drop the formalities." "Eleanor," Marcus continued, "I don't know what to say. This is incredibly generous, but having an endowment named after me feels wrong somehow. I was just doing what anyone should do." "That's exactly why it should be named after you," Eleanor replied. "Because you still believe that helping others is what anyone should do, even though you've learned how rare that attitude actually is." After the board meeting, Marcus and Eleanor walked through the foundation's offices together. They passed walls lined with photographs of families they had helped, thank you letters from scholarship recipients, and awards the foundation had received for its charitable work. "Do you ever regret it?" Eleanor asked as they paused in front of a photo of Sofia Rodriguez, the little girl with the heart condition who had been one of Marcus's first cases. The photo showed her at age 13, healthy and smiling after her successful surgery. "Regret what?" Marcus asked. "Giving up your dream of being a mechanical engineer. Taking on all this responsibility. Sometimes I worry that I pushed you into a life you didn't choose for yourself." Marcus was quiet for a moment, considering her question. "Do you know what I was thinking about the day I helped you with your wheelchair?" "What?" "I was thinking about how I wished I could do more for my mother. I felt helpless watching her suffer and knowing I couldn't afford to give her the care she needed. I was angry at the world for being so unfair." Marcus paused and looked at Eleanor. "Helping you that day reminded me that even when we feel powerless, we can always do something to make someone else's situation a little better. And now, because of what you've taught me, I get to do that every day for dozens of people." Eleanor smiled, and Marcus could see tears forming in her eyes. "Besides," Marcus continued, "I think this work uses the same problem-solving skills I would have used as an engineer. I'm still fixing things that are broken, just in a different way." That evening, Marcus went home to Sarah and shared the news about Eleanor's announcement. Sarah had been working longer hours lately, having been promoted to head nurse in the pediatric intensive care unit, but she was always eager to hear about the foundation's progress. "An endowment named after you," Sarah said, shaking her head in amazement. 5 years ago, you were worried about paying for groceries, and now you have an endowment named after you." "It's strange how life works out," Marcus agreed. "Sometimes the best things happen when you're not even trying to make them happen." They were interrupted by a phone call from Dorothy, who had heard about the board meeting from Eleanor. "I'm so proud of you." "Son," his mother said, her voice thick with emotion, "your father would be amazed to see what you've accomplished." As Marcus reflected on the conversation, he thought about his father's old saying about kindness being the only currency that never lost its value. The truth of those words had been proven over and over again throughout the past 5 years. The next morning, Marcus returned to work with a renewed sense of purpose. Eleanor had built something beautiful with the foundation, but now it was his responsibility to continue growing that legacy. He thought about all the future Marcus Johnsons out there, people who were struggling but still found time to help others, people who deserved a chance to see their kindness rewarded. As he settled into his office and began reviewing the day's applications for assistance, Marcus smiled. Somewhere in the city, there might be another delivery driver helping an elderly woman with her wheelchair, never imagining that this simple act of kindness could change both of their lives forever. The cycle continued, and Marcus was honored to be part of keeping it going.